Muy buenos días a todos los presentes, damas y caballeros. Escala, Latam y la Universidad Aden International Business School les da la más cordial bienvenida al evento Tour Virtual del Ecosistema Externo de Harrisburg University. A continuación, le presentamos al presidente de Escala, Latam, Roberto Melo, quien nos dará las palabras de introducción y bienvenida de este evento.
Hola, soy Roberto Melo, el presidente de Escala Latam. Saludos y bienvenidos a nuestro primer tour de innovación. Hoy estamos probando varias tecnologías, así que saludos desde Panamá. Primero que nada, quiero comenzar con varios agradecimientos. Un agradecimiento especial a Aden University por prestarnos sus facilidades hoy para transmitir desde Panamá para la región. Muy agradecidos. También agradecidos con el equipo de Harrisburg por toda la coordinación, no solamente acá en Panamá, sino también con el equipo que está en Virginia y en Harrisburg. Así que muchas gracias a ellos. Le quiero dar la bienvenida también acá especial al profesor Philip Sethorn, que nos visita en persona acá en Panamá. Así que welcome Philip to Panama. Ahora conversamos un poco más con él de lo que nos va a presentar es el tema de la mentalidad ágil y cómo la mentalidad ágil ayuda a potenciar ideas, organizaciones, y es la nueva forma de pensar, la forma del futuro. Y también un agradecimiento especial en Virginia al profesor Michael Hughes, que nos está presentando, nos va a conversar un poco más de su Centro de Innovación en Virginia. Así que bienvenidos a todos y muy agradecidos por su compañía hoy en la mañana. Así que quisiera pedirle a producción que me ponga por un segundo aquí una pequeña introducción de lo que hace Escala Latam. No los quiero aburrir con eso, quiero dejar que el contenido principal de lo que vamos a conversar hoy es lo que cubramos, pero sí les quiero contar un poquito de qué hace Escala. Así que no sé si producción me ayuda a correr un poco lo que hace Escala y nos pone más grandes ahí. Sí, adelante. Ok, entonces, adelante el siguiente slide, producción, gracias. Ok, eso es un poco lo que hace Escala Latam. Nosotros somos una plataforma que ayuda a escalar ideas innovadoras. Y nosotros estamos en constante búsqueda de esa próxima gran idea que puede venir desde una startup hasta un grupo de corporaciones que ayuden a escalar esa idea o buscar esa idea para escalarla y llevarla al siguiente nivel. ¿Y cómo hacemos esto? Nosotros interconectamos diferentes actores del ecosistema para ayudar a que estas ideas nazcan, florezcan y pasen al siguiente nivel. Y esos actores son corporativos. Por el otro lado, también pueden ser nuestro grupo de mentores que siempre acompañan y ayudan a desarrollar estas ideas para complementarlas. Y finalmente, un grupo de inversores que son los que al final, cuando descubrimos las ideas que tienen potencial, vamos a estar en capacidad de poder inyectarles capital y llevarlas al siguiente nivel. Así que ahora más tarde en la presentación o al final, nuestra directora de operaciones les va a contar un poco de algunas ideas e innovaciones que tenemos también hacia el final. Así que no se vayan y no se pierdan la sorpresa que les tenemos al final. Así que nada, no los quiero aburrir más y quiero seguir con esta parte de la presentación y darles paso a nuestros principales invitados de hoy, al equipo de Harrisburg. Así que bienvenidos nuevamente y espero que lo disfruten. Gracias.
Agradecemos al presidente de Escala Latam, el señor Roberto Melo, por sus palabras de introducción y bienvenida de este evento. Y a continuación presentamos a nuestro primer expositor. Es el señor Michael Hughes. Él es especialista en ventas y marketing en el Centro de Innovación y Emprendimiento de la Universidad de Harrisburg. Michael tiene una pasión por la tecnología, es un emprendedor en serie y un experimentado gerente de empresas tecnológicas. Su experiencia incluye la gestión completa del ciclo de vida de aplicaciones de software de alta capacidad de extremo a extremo, la creación de plataformas SaaS, líderes en su clase y más de 20 años de experiencia en el desarrollo de nuevos productos.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for having me today. I'm very excited to present to you the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship at Harrisburg University. The Center of the center we call the CIE was started about 3.5 years ago. And the reason it was started 3.5 years ago was, bear with me for a second, I'm trying to make my slides go here. Thank you. Is because in our region of central Pennsylvania, which is the part of Pennsylvania between Philadelphia on one side and a big city of Pittsburgh on the other, did not have a lot of innovation coming out of our region. And what we had found through some studies that were done by the Brookings Institute in the United States was that our region where the university is was a very, very bad region for innovation and expansion and new technologies. And that we were falling behind as a state to create new technologies and have new capabilities coming out of the Commonwealth or the state of Pennsylvania. And so part of the reason to create the Center of Innovation and Entrepreneurship, next slide, please, is to create what is called a tech innovation hub. The concept behind a tech innovation hub is to have one central university, oftentimes a STEM school, science, technology, engineering, and math, as the hub of an innovation center. And then we bring all of the other pieces of innovation expansion to that hub, such as seed capital, private equity money, basically all of the tools you need to help companies and entrepreneurs build new things. The method of this tech innovation hub and this system is not new in the United States. In fact, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, through the University of Pennsylvania, or Penn, there is a tech innovation hub in Philadelphia. There is a tech innovation hub in Pittsburgh through Carnegie Mellon University. And then there are other tech innovation hubs across the country. So it's not a new concept. And what's exciting about that is it allows us to look at the best practices of building this type of system and how to do it in our region. So we started about 3.5 years ago. Next slide, please. And this is what we do at the Center of Innovation and Entrepreneurship. We take either an individual who wants to create a new product or company, or an existing company who wants to create a new innovation, and we help them build it. And as part of helping them build those technologies, we teach them how to analyze what they want to build and assess the viability of what they want to build. And then we take them down the journey of taking their concept from the idea stage and taking it all the way to building the actual concept and then sitting them down in front of finance and money players to ask for money to get the company off the ground. Next slide, please. The university, in addition to helping entrepreneurs build out their concepts through what we call a business incubator, we also do a number of community-oriented events and experiential learning concepts that are directed outward into the communities in the region in which Harrisburg University works. Harrisburg University, many universities have entrepreneurial centers and things that they give to their students, but they're usually focused inward on the university. Harrisburg University is focused outward. So we are approaching not only students at our university, but students at other universities and high school students to do some of the programs that we're rolling out. We also deliver programs to the greater community, to entrepreneurs, to and a lot of the work that we do is in distressed and low income or communities that have not been delivered these services in the past. And the intention behind all of our programs is to deliver something that not only helps build new innovations, but can possibly help a student learn about innovation and also help a local company or organization build one. This one is called the Launch U. Launch U is a startup competition, like a Shark Tank competition that you hear in the US. And what the students do is they have 5 weeks to put together a concept in which they then present to a group of judges. They have a corporate mentor during that 5 weeks that helps them build out the presentation. And then they present that concept or a company idea to a group of judges, and the judges pick the winner. The winner gets a cash prize and also the opportunity to then go and incubate their new concept at the business incubator at Harrisburg University. Next slide, please. This is what we do and how we do it. Basically, if you are an entrepreneur or if you are a company that's building a new technology and using us, we bring you in, we analyze what you want to do, and then we plug you into student teams that have the capabilities with professors, and then they sit down and they build out actually the proof of concept, sometimes what we call a MVP or minimum viable product, and assist that entrepreneur or company to create the new technology. The benefit to the entrepreneur and to the new company is that we do it very inexpensively. In this scenario, the students are paid to work on the project, and then sometimes they also get credit. Next slide, please. We talked about our corporate innovation labs. This is where we go to a company and we say, look, if you look at Harrisburg University, it's a toolbox of advanced capabilities, artificial intelligence, predictive analytics, augmented reality, virtual reality, blockchain. And it is this toolbox is sitting in Harrisburg waiting for you as a company to plug into that toolbox and outsource your R&D in the environment with the university and do it for very inexpensive versus if you went and tried to build it with commercially in the marketplace. Right now, we're doing a lot of work. Next slide, please. In this particular area, this is an example of some of the companies that we have done corporate innovation with. Hershey Company. There's some good names on there, some large names. And again, not a new concept, not a new idea, but an idea that is new to our region. And this method of engaging the local companies and national companies that are in the region to do this innovation is another way in which we expand the amount of innovation that comes out of the region. Because what happens when these companies do this innovation is sometimes they find out that it's something they want to use within their company, but other times they find out that it has the ability to become a product itself and be taken out and established as a separate entity. Remember, the intention for us as a university and the Tech Innovation Hub is to have the region known for new technologies coming out of it. And it also gives a reason for our populace within the state to stay in the region because there's new and cutting edge jobs that are being created. Next slide, please. It's very interesting if you look at central Pennsylvania as a region, and I'm from this area of the country, it is very what we call traditional and very conservative. And what that means from a standpoint of business is that oftentimes a lot of the advancements and capabilities you see coming out of other markets happen before it gets to our region. And one of the things that we're talking to all of the companies in our region about is the importance of technology and the importance of innovation. And what we're finding is that unless the company is in a marketplace in which they really have to focus on innovation because they have competitors that are, or they need to focus on innovation to leap forward, they're not really focusing on it. So the first thing that happened is we had to kind of let all the CEOs in the region know this is what innovation is, and this is why you should look at it. And what we tell them is this: you could be somebody who owns a big plumbing contractor that works with people's plumbings and their sinks in their house. You don't think of that as a technology business, but there is technology that is encroaching on all aspects of that business that you as a business owner should be looking at technology to see if it can make you more competitive, can see if it can make you do things faster and cheaper, and to use it as a proactive strategy in your business, even though your business isn't necessarily the concept or a technology business per se. Next slide, please. These are the verticals that we have been focusing on when we do industry verticals. Our region has a lot of medical companies, and interestingly enough, our region has a lot of supply chain because it's a large trucking and train hub for the United States. So when we go in and work with different companies in different sectors, we do specific innovation analysis that's specific to that sector. Next slide, please. Here is some examples of some of the other programs that we do. I had mentioned to you, we do outward-facing programs. We have one program called Blend. Blend is actually a networking event. And what we get is we get 40 to 60 people that come to a different location, and entrepreneurs talk about their concepts. We also bring in speakers like law firms that tell people how they should incorporate companies, accounting firms that explain to them the basics of accounting. And the intention with this particular event is to deliver and get communication and connection between entrepreneurs. We also have a hackathon in which we actually bring in people over a 2-day session to actually build a technology for a client. And these are all great programs that have had some great success for us, that not only expand the knowledge of what we're doing out of the center, but also expand the number of people that come to us looking to work with the center and build new concepts. Next slide, please. Let's talk a little bit about some of the companies that we have incubated in our business incubator. Our business incubator is 18 months long. So we can take somebody from the idea stage in the beginning, and over that 18-month period, walk them all the way to the point in which they can stand in front of financial companies and ask for money to get the company off the ground. And this is what we tell the different entrepreneurs that come through this 18-month program. The only thing that is not known in this scenario during that program is the entrepreneur's idea. What do I mean by that? What I mean is this journey from idea stage to getting somebody to give you money to take it into the market has been built and managed across the United States in other technology innovation hub areas like Silicon Valley that we've heard of for 35 years. And the reason we tell them that is so that they can feel great that what they can focus on is building what they want to build and getting to market, and know that they are stepping into a process that helps them because we know how to do it, and the people that work at the center have already been through it. Our executive director took 2 full companies, raised over $22 million in seed capital, and took 2 full companies through Silicon Valley, built them, and sold them. He's worked with the finance system in the United States from Silicon Valley to New York City. The people that work at the center have all been involved in the entrepreneurial journey, and we mentor the people that come to the center to assist them to get some successful business off the ground. The one that you're looking at right now is Arcana Recovery. And Sharina, the CEO of Arcana Recovery, was a military veteran that came back with post-traumatic stress disorder, ended up on drugs and homeless. She cleaned herself up, got off the street, got off the drugs, and then got back, relapsed, and ended up back on the street. She cleaned herself up again, and she came back and she said, there is nothing that helps someone who, especially veterans, who have problems and end up on drugs or on the street or both. There is nothing that helps them to keep them from relapsing. So she created a system that uses artificial intelligence that communicates with the recovering addict and make sure that they don't relapse. She's had spectacular success, and through incubating at the university so far, I think she's up to $350,000 in seed capital that we have raised through the center to assist her. Next slide, please. This one is pretty exciting too. And let me make a comment about the people who are incubating at the center. People come to us all the time and they say, hey, I got a great idea for a business, but it's not a technology business. And we say, come on and let's take a look. Does not have to be a technology business to be in the incubator. This one is called Naki Logic. And Naki Logic has been with Harrisburg University and incubating at the university since their inception. Naki Logic has a smart earbud operating system that can be licensed to any earbud manufacturer or any manufacturer of an earbud system in the world that allows somebody to manage any technical interface, your phone, your computer, your TV, a radio, anything, with small movements of the jaw, small movements of the head, or small movements of the eyes. They have 22 provisional patents. They are pre-Series A and already got a $100 million market valuation. We think there is a very good possibility they could go on to get a $1 billion valuation in a very reasonable time. They are in conversations with Google, with Apple, with the Department of Defense, you name it. They're having conversations with them right now about the utilization of their system. And let's make a quick comment about innovation, which I think is important to note. And this is what we're finding out in central Pennsylvania. Innovation is not a reflection of location, education, or age. Good ideas come out from everything. Basic criteria to me to submit an idea. Basic criteria is a viable business that has the ability to scale and to make revenue. That's really what we're looking at from a standpoint of viability. And in the last 3.5 years that we've been in existence, we have looked at over 275 companies that wanted to look at concepts. We have incubated 18 companies before now. We have 15 companies in our incubator now, and we hope by the end of this year to have that number up to 20. So back to, question on Agile in particular. Agile, no. Interestingly enough, we haven't done a lot of local government work on that. That being said, We have a pretty serious computer science department. Most of our professors come from out of industry, and a lot of them actually come from out of government. So I don't know the answer, but if you have somebody follow up with me and get you connected with me, please, I'll follow up with you and we'll get you some specifics on that. Back to Naki Logic for a second. Do you want to go ahead and run that video real quick so people can get an idea what we're talking about?
It's the breakthrough to control the digital devices all around us. The Naki-powered earbud control a wheelchair and other mobility devices with subtle facial micro-gestures or head movements. The Naki earbud senses the signals from micro-gestures and movements. It turns them
Getting a little. Okay. Well, you guys got the idea. Sorry about that. The streaming went a little bit, but what you just saw there was real. That guy was actually controlling that through the interface. You know, and it's interesting. Harrisburg University has an esports team, which is one of the best in the world. And our esports team is now looking at the Naki earbud system to see if they can use that to reduce the amount of action they do while using handheld systems in e-gaming and sports. Next slide, please. Oh, that's Naki again. We'll keep on going. One more. Okay, that's pretty much it. That's the Center of Innovation and Entrepreneurship. Now, let me tell you one last thing that we're doing so that you understand what's involved in creating these hubs. We are actively reaching out to all of the CEOs and all of the major companies in the region. We have events where we bring them to the centers. We talk to them about what we're doing. We are establishing angel investor networks. In fact, we had our first meeting last month in which we had, I believe it was 20 high net worth individuals from this region that we're going to establish a structure where they can review the technologies that are coming out of the center. If you go to some place like Washington, D.C., and an area where this type of thing has already been created, it's amazing because you've got all the companies working with the universities on new innovations. You've got 20 or 25, 30 new companies coming out of the innovation centers. You've got active investors waiting for those people to come out of there that are ready to invest. And I think that Harrisburg University and what we're doing on our journey, we're probably about a year and a half away from that. So thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. I made
presentation very, very interesting. It's amazing how you everything that you have done so far in so little time, and I'm sure the audience is looking for opportunities as well to collaborate. Some of the things that you're doing up there are very similar to what we're trying to accomplish here too, so there's a lot of opportunity for collaboration. Thank you so much for your time. I think that you have been answering the questions from the audience. I think we have a comment here from Emmanuel, that Emmanuel Cristobal, they have all commented. I think that you covered everything so far. And then Professor Sedholm will cover some of the questions later in his presentation. ¿Alguna pregunta de la audiencia de este lado? Adelante, por favor. En español está bien y yo te traduzco. O en inglés, como que. You need to speak to that.
Hi, everybody. My name is Moises Valdivia. Well, I would like to know if there is any failure rate related to these projects, and if it's any difference between projects that entrepreneurs with major startups involved between or comparing with other projects where entrepreneurs, they don't have major studies. I mean, if there is any comparison between the successful rate on those type of projects, I would like to know that.
Gotcha. The short answer is I'm not sure. And let's talk about this for a second. You know, part of the reason why you use a university as the hub of these type of things is so our agenda can remain neutral. So there are other there are entrepreneurial centers that are not attached to universities that you can go and engage that can assist you. But they have a specific agenda. What happens with Harrisburg University is we take a 3.5% position in the incubating company. And that is how we potentially get a return on the investment that we make as a university in incubating that company. Because when we incubate someone, we give them free space, we give them 4 student interns. You know, we over that 18-month period, we're spending around $70,000 to $100,000 on each one of the incubating companies to get them off the ground. As to success, what's interesting about the incubation process is if you think about doing this on your own and kind of figuring out and vetting the validity of what you're doing by yourself, it can cost you money to do it. We have had entrepreneurs come into the center and within the first 4 months of doing their analysis of what they were doing, walk away because they realized that they weren't going down the right path and they decided not to do it. But I don't have stats right in front of me to find out if companies coming out of an incubator or a university incubator are more successful than not. But again, please reach out to me after this event and I will do some research. I can probably find you that research and some answers on that pretty quick.
Con esta interacción de diferentes preguntas agradecemos la excelente presentación del profesor Michael Hughes de la Universidad de Harrisburg University con el tema Tour virtual del ecosistema externo. Y a continuación presentamos a Philip Sedholm, profesor de Harrisburg University, quien cuenta con más de 18 años de experiencia integral en la dinámica industria de tecnologías de la información. Ha liderado iniciativas tecnológicas y empresariales vanguardistas, maximizando ingresos y optimizando flujos de trabajo. Es experto en identificar brechas y redundancias, implementando soluciones innovadoras y asegurando el cumplimiento de sus plazos. Su habilidad para mejorar múltiples proyectos simultáneamente y el rendimiento lo convierten en un referente en su campo. A continuación, con la presentación del profesor Philip Sedholm.
I don't see the green light. Okay. All right. So thank you for inviting me to be here. I don't know what the coordinator just said, but it seems to be, a lot of great things. So, all right. My name is Philip. I work for Harrisburg University. I teach Agile and Lean, and I practice Agile and Lean too. I'm glad to be here. So one thing I would like you guys to know, I like my presentation to be an interactive. So don't wait until the end to ask questions. Stop me at any time. And if there is something online, questions online, hold it, like the coordinator, please let me know between the slides. And this way, we get the best of this presentation. This is an introduction for the Agile and Lean. And there was a question earlier during the last presentation for Michael about implementing Lean and Agile in government in general. And that could be government in any country. We know that governments in the United States have already implemented Agile and scaled Agile for many years. Just give you examples. CMS, or Central for Medicare and Medicaid Management in the United States, NASA, many of other government agencies in the United States have already used Lean and Agile. Lean and Agile is not a methodology. It's a framework and a mindset. Like if you look at it as a methodology, you're probably not going to be successful, but you look at it from the change of the way that you think and the change of the way you do things, you will be very successful. That's why we go to the basics, how we can actually develop this mindset, and that's why we are here today to talk about it. Next slide, please. All right, that's fine. All right, so we are here to talk about the way of thinking, the way of changing, the way of doing traditional work. As you all know, the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over and expect different results. So if you want to expect different results, you need to change the way of do work and also change of the you think. So we're going to talk about we explore what it means, why it's important, what some of the challenges that you're going to meet, and also how we develop that mindset, or how we develop a mindset in general. All right, next slide, please. So just one thing I wanted you guys to know, all the images on this presentation was generated by AI. All right. So the challenges that I had before when I'm creating presentation is to find an image that does not violate the copyrights of the people that taken the image from. Now with a new technology that we have, you create an image with the AI that nobody else has used before. This way, I'm not worried about any of these images violate any copyrights in the United States or anywhere else. So as we said, the Lean Agile mindset is a way of thinking, and that's basically emphasized on collaboration, continuous improvement, and customer focus. Basically, the idea is to have a customer centricity in every step in the way. And of course, we're going to talk more about the customer centricity, the more you concentrate on the customer, the more successful you will be. So the principles of Lean Agile mindset is based on the Agile principles and on Lean thinking. Lean is not new. Lean has been used since 1940s and started, formally started by Toyota and Taishi Ono in Japan. But the roots of it, it's actually before that. Frederick Taylor and Henry Ford were kind of laid some of the work that Taishi Ono and Eiji Toyoda built on and created the lean and the lean thinking. Then Agile framework started maybe in the late 1990s and formalized by the Agile Manifesto in early 2000. And we have many frameworks that we can talk about them and how you can actually use them in order to change the way of doing business and change the way of satisfying your customer and also engaging your employees. And of course, as we know, engaged employees are usually happy employees and stay with companies longer. Next slide, please. So until the slide comes in, all right. All right. Yeah. So why we want to use that? Okay. As I just mentioned earlier, the business has been, the business environment changed really rapidly. And in order to actually keep up with the changing environment and to stay relevant to the market, you need to be able to respond quickly to the market change. Otherwise, you're going to be obsolete. I can give you examples from companies in the United States that became obsolete in no time. Companies that were legends in the United States, Sears, for example, I don't know if you guys heard about Sears. When I migrated to the United States in 1990, Sears was a very big company. They don't exist anymore, okay? Lord & Taylor, if people who feel like, ladies probably knows Lord & Taylor more, kind of like don't exist anymore. The reason why they don't exist is because they were not able to adapt to the business environment and the changes that happening. In order to respond to that, you need agility. And in order to have the agility is more into the mindset more than anything else. Example of business agility, when Walmart responded to changes that Amazon did. Amazon, a couple of years ago, came in and said, like in the United States, they were delivering in 2 days. They changed it to deliver it in 1 day. Of course, Walmart was trying to catch up. In few days, Walmart were able to say, we will also deliver in 1 day. So this is kind of the business agility that you have so you can keep up with the changing environment. Also, lean and agile, because you deliver and you also, you deliver to your customer are happy, your people will be happy too and will be more engaged and will have the sense of accomplishment, and also they will stay longer. And like the changing of the employees affect the results of your company. Next slide, please. So, like the way I had this slide, honestly, to just only have the title first, and then we'll fill up, because I want to ask you how we develop our own mindset. How we develop our own mindset. Forget about lean and agile.
I guess it's a reflection of our
Experiences. Anything else? Knowledge. Family values. Environment. Biases. Education. All this stuff form up our mindset. Okay? Can we change our mindset? Yes? Okay. So what is the first step to change our mindset? Decide. You have to decide that I want to change my mindset. That's the example that I usually say when I talk about this is, in order to get treatment, you have to decide that I am sick. Like you're not gonna go to the doctor unless you acknowledge that you are sick, right? You're not gonna change your mind set unless you wanna decide there is something is happening here, and I need to make a change. Otherwise, I'm not going to be up to the task. So the first thing we do when we want to talk about Agile and Lean is we want to say, okay, now I want to change my mindset. How? Okay. So the first step is for you and me to learn about the basics. Okay. So what are the basics and what are the principles and the values for Agile and Lean? And then we examine our behavior, and every step we do, it's like this is whatever the task I'm going to do or the action I'm going to do. Does it fit with the values and the principles or it doesn't? And if you examine, so you have the values and principles, and then you have the practice that will practice the values and principles. Next slide, please. The Agile Manifesto. Anyone heard about the Agile Manifesto before? So now we have Edgar know about it. So, like if you didn't know, I'm going to tell you anything. And, All right, the Agile Manifesto came in 2001. There was 17 software developers who were tired of seeing their project failed. Some of them already created some of the framework, and they want to formalize some of the values and the principles. So they met in 2001 in a snow resort in Utah, and they met, talked about it, and they came up with very small values, 4 values basically. And these 4 values will say, we value individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Okay? We see the change as an opportunity. Okay? We welcome a change even late in the development cycle. And also customer collaboration over contract negotiation, responding to change, and working software over comprehensive documentation. When we come to the working software over comprehensive documentation, the first thing is Agile started with software industry. And as Michael mentioned earlier, any company, regardless of the industry or in, it's a technology company. You like it or not, technology is part of every company right now. But remove the word software, because we're actually Agile now, you could use it in any other industry. And it changed the word software by a product or a solution. So working product or a working solution over comprehensive documentation. So I ask you a question here. How many of you use toasters? Toasters, Yeah, okay. So when you buy a new toaster, do you plug it in right away and try to use it, or do you read the manual? Okay, when you read the manual, when it doesn't work, right? So that's the idea. If you have a working product, who cares about documentation? We need documentation, not pages and pages of documentation, but we need a little bit of documentation just in case I want to go back to it. But all what we need to care about is working product or working software. Sir?
Yeah, I had a question about that. We have many corporate customers that obviously are very well established companies. So how do you get over that when you have corporations that have established governance processes for different things, right? And all sorts of committees and things that make it more difficult to implement. That cultural change that you say is so important.
Yes. One of the frameworks that I'm gonna mention toward the end of the presentation is called the Scaled Agile Framework Enterprise. In the Scaled Agile Framework Enterprise, which basically, this is ahead of the whatever I want to, Agile usually work for a small team, about 10 people. That worked very well because you have came from many researches that people interact better in a smaller group, and they collaborate better in smaller group. If you want to create a bigger or a complex product, 10 people are going to take forever in order to deliver that product. So there is a need of have multiple teams to work together. And in order to have multiple teams, you need coordination between those teams. So a scaled agile framework, and one of them is a SAFE, which I'll mention later on, is one of the framework that you use to coordinate between those teams. In that framework, they mention we will keep the hierarchy as it is, because that's a stability that we created over years. And that's what's needed to keep the lights on and pay the bills and all the stuff. But we need to reorganize people as a second operating system around the value stream, which, you look at value stream, how you create value for your company and how you create value for your customer and who are involved in those steps. And then you coordinate the people around that. Okay, so you have two operating systems. One operating system is to keep the hierarchy as it is, HR and paying the bills, and the second operating system in the same company is to create around the value stream, around creating your product. Did that make sense? Next slide, please. So the Agile Manifesto started with four values. People start asking questions. They added later on about 12 principles. I'm not going to go through every one of them. As we mentioned, this is an introduction. Hopefully later on, we'll have more sessions that we can deep dive in all this stuff. So we now know the Agile values and principle. Then we'll talk about the Lean principle. There is 7 Lean principles came over the years. The first one is to eliminate waste. The idea of the Lean in general is to eliminate waste and create values. All right? So those 7 are eliminate waste, build the quality in, create knowledge, deliver fast, deliver commitment, respect the people, optimize the whole. One of them I want to just, really emphasize on is respect the people. All right, and in every Agile and Lean thinking principle or framework, we stress on respecting people. And we go one step further is saying respect the people and culture. Right now, there is no company that's only localized to one area. All the companies, usually international companies, and we have people across the globe working together. We have different cultures, we have different values, and we have be able to understand our own culture and other cultures and understand the people. We respect the people as capable people. We give them the tools to deliver, and we trust them to do the right thing. An exchange of trusting people in Agile Lean frameworks, in exchange, we expect them to be committed and we expect them to be transparent. So you, as a leader, you need to give the autonomy to your people to do the right things and respect them and expect them to do the right things and expect them to be transparent and committed and accountable for the work they do. Again, we're going to talk about the role of the leadership in implementing Lean Agile framework later on, but those are the 7 values, 7 principles for Lean. And then we go deeper later on when we talk about eliminate the waste. Like any activity that your company does not, or you person, any activity that you do not add value for yourself is a waste. Okay? But we will talk, not today, there is a way how you actually identify waste. Okay? Because, if you don't train your eye to recognize waste, how are you going to eliminate it? Okay, but in general, eliminating waste, any activities that does not add value to you or your company, consider it a waste. Okay, but those are 7 principles that we add to the Agile principles and values that will help us to practice on lean and agile. Next slide, please. So, customer focus. I don't need to actually talk much about our customer focus. We know, like, if you don't focus on your customer, you're not going to be successful, okay? But how you focus on your customer? You focus on customer to understand their needs and wants. And sometimes their needs is different from their wants, right? You know, like Henry Ford one time said, if I ask people what they want, they are probably going to ask for faster horses. His idea, he wanted every family in the United States to have cars at the time. He reduced, got to the point that he was able to deliver cars, like almost $5,000 car. Again, that was then. Now, cars is a lot more expensive. But the idea is to use lean UX, which is the idea is like to talk to your customer, understand what they want, analyze it, and find actual needs out of that. And then you're gonna add that, like to do for your customer. By putting yourself in the shoes of the customer, and like you will be able to actually create a valuable, sustainable, and maintainable product. So the example that Michael used, the wheelchair, that someone created something that controlled the wheelchair or control other devices by that twitching of the head or something. Probably there was a need for someone. Like I was sitting in the table next to Edgar. It's like the need is always, the reason of any innovation. So someone found out, maybe in their family or themselves, that they have a wheelchair and have difficulty controlling them. And by asking them questions, they will be able to find that idea that you will create that product there. That's the same thing when you're actually talking to your customer. Try to ask the questions, find their needs, so you will actually create what's next best thing for them. So one of the main principles we use is customer centricity and customer focus, and we'll use many other tools to be able to identify the customer needs. Next slide, please. Collaboration. So like we looked, like as Michael earlier said, most of the time people look inside the university, and then Harrisburg University is looking outside. The first step when you implement Agile and Lean is to look outside, is the customer focus. Now we need to look inside, where you do the collaboration between the team. Creating small teams, cross-functional team that able to create the same product without dependency on others, and help the team collaboration. As a leader, you need to foster an environment where experimentation is allowed without penalizing people who's trying new things. Creating a safe environment for people to collaborate together and be able to create the products. Collaboration, like, no offense, I don't care how smart you are, okay? But collectively, together, we will be able to create a better things than if you can create this by yourself, okay? So collaboration will create a product, a lot better than just individuals working by themselves. And also when we create a collaboration, we break down silos between departments, and that, we learn from each other. There is something that we actually talk about when we're doing Agile, when the team are in the same place, something called osmotic communication. Like if Edgar talking to Moises, and I'm sitting next to them, they talking about something, automatically I'm absorbing some of the information that they actually talking about. So some of this collaboration that enhances the learning of the team too. Okay, so this is something that as a leader you need to concentrate on. So you need to also help, like the collaboration will help you to respond to your customer needs quicker. Because as I said, regardless how smart you are, if you are working in a team of smart people, the collective knowledge is a lot better than just one person. Next slide, please. Empowerment. This is, my feeling that everybody here is a leader. So your job as a leader is to empower your people. Give them that tools and trust them to make the right decisions. I was working in an organization as an Agile coach, and one of the meetings that we do is called a daily stand-up or daily scrum, where the team comes together and they synchronize on the work that they did before and the work that they're going to do in the next day. And one of the developers said, I'm waiting for approval to implement a database change. Happens, yeah, waiting for approval one day, okay. The following day, same thing. The day after, the same thing. So it's just like, okay, hold on, Roberto, what are you waiting for? And he said he's waiting for a director of the line of business to approve that change. This lady, she has 5 managers and about like 400 people report to her. Okay, so imagine I'm a developer. I'm just sending Roberto an email, expecting Roberto to see the email and respond to me. Okay, if Roberto have like 500, 600 emails in a day, what the chances is that Roberto gonna see my email? Very slim. So that's a top-down hierarchical organization that we don't want to do. We, as an Agilist, we ask you to send the decision where the information is. If the information on the level of the teams, then the team can make the decision and empower them to take the decisions. If the information in the level of the CIO, then just leave it there. Okay, like there is decisions that like developers and company work are not going to be able to do. But there is a lot of time the workers themselves they know the work more than their manager. So there is no reason to be a bottleneck in your work. And again, that's a change of mentality as a leader, that you need to empower people to make the right decisions. And if not going to be the right decision today, it's going to be the right decision tomorrow, because they're going to learn from their mistakes, right? So this is part of the Agile Lean mindset, is to empower your people and give them the tools and the knowledge to be able to make the right decisions. Next slide, please. Continuous improvement. In the core of every Agile and Lean framework is continuous improvement. If you're not improving, you're not staying in your place. You're actually going behind. Okay? So I started, as a mainframe developer, by the way. Like if you know what's mainframe, it's a COBOL and very, very old systems. Most of the mainframe developers will tell you Agile is not going to work for them, because this is a legacy system and that's how we do it. I always look for something, what's next for me as a person, what I want to learn next. When AI came in, became very popular in the last few months, a lot of people look at it as a threat. My job is gonna be removed. I looked at it, how this is gonna help me, reduce the amount of hours that I spend on creating presentation. How I can actually use it, for example, to create images that I'm not worried that someone come after me after that. As a continuous improvement team, will do something called retrospective. Okay, traditional project management do lesson learned, but they usually do it at the end of the project after 6-8 months. And by the time they implement the next one, like they forgot those, it becomes like a document, they put it somewhere. In Agile and Lean, we do retrospective every 2 weeks. And we take that retrospective by feedback from the customers. And then we take that feedback, we implement it back into our next iteration. So the idea of creating value smaller and quicker, every 2 weeks we create a piece of the value. And then 2 weeks later, we create another piece of the value that builds on the previous one. And every time we create a piece of value, we get a feedback and we examine our work. And that's a core of continuous improvement for. So we talked about, like, by the way, there is a lot more than that, but at least we mentioned a few of them. Customer focus. We spoke about collaboration. We spoke about empowerment, and we spoke about continuous improvement. So keep in mind, those are some of the principles that you want to implement when you're changing the way of work. Next slide, please. All right, so the new and old. What the difference between the old way of working and the new way of working? Okay, the new way of working, they have the collaboration, continuous improvement, and the customer focus, with concentrate on interactions and individuals and interactions. The old way of working was hierarchical, where I have top down. The boss knows everything, and the boss will tell people what to do, and they do whatever it is. And by the way, there is a video in YouTube called Greatness. It's about 12-minute video about a captain of a submarine. And he's talking about how he changed the way of working in nuclear submarines in the United States. And he's talking about the difference between hierarchical organization and empowerment organization. So I wasn't one of the stuff I did in my career. I was assistant manager in a drugstore called Rite Aid. I don't know if you know about it. Anyway, a drugstore like Walgreens or Walmart and stuff like that. And the manager told the clerk to do something, and she did it in a different way. And so he came and he looked at her, like, why you did that? The girl was really said, I thought. She was going to tell him, I thought something, and that's the way it. And the old way of working, he told her, you're not here to think. You are here to do what I tell you. Of course, I don't think this girl stayed long in that place because, you're really insulting her intelligence. So in the new way of working, to encourage people to come with innovative ideas, collaboration, the old way of working is hierarchical organizations. Another difference that we see that change as an opportunity. In the old way, we see that change as a threat. As I said, AI, generative AI came up very recently and, became very popular. A lot of people is thinking about how this is going to eliminate my job. Other people say how I'm going to make money using the AI. So that's a two different way of looking at that. All right, next slide, please. So what's the challenges that we can see usually in adopting Lean and Agile? Anyone can guess? It's in the slide, but can you guess? You said, huh? Culture. Yes, definitely. The culture, organizational culture affects the ability to change. I worked in an organization, and I'm still working on another organization that organization started about 200 years ago. We're implementing an Agile and Lean there. You can imagine pushing mountains of different cultures that was built over the last 200 years. People resist change. Generally, as human, we don't like change. We know that. So a lot of employees will look at it as a threat for their existence, so they resist that change. Okay, so I'm going to give you a quick example. In Agile, for example, we're going to mention the Scrum. There is 3 roles: the Scrum Master, Product Owner, and a development team. There is no title for a project manager. There is no title for business analyst, for example. So like when you try to implement the Agile, people from the project management and some like, okay, I'm a project manager. Where I'm going to go? Are you going to fire me? And I'm a business analyst. You don't have roles there. What I do? Okay. So that's part of the resistance, that people are afraid that that will eliminate their position. Of course, we don't eliminate any position. We do not fire anyone. We actually reskill the people to do the new way of the work. Okay, so the culture and the resistance to change usually are challenges for do that. Also, coordinating between teams is always a challenge, and having people work together is always a challenge. You remember the Tucker model of team formation, which is like forming, storming, norming, and performing. Those are 4 stages of the team formation. Forming is when you get the people together. Storming, where the ideas start to clash together and personality, and you find a lot of clashes and stuff like that. Norming, now we understand each other, we understand the strengths and weaknesses of each other, and then now we are not, past the storming stage. And once we pass the storming stage and we understand each other, we start the performing. So when you're forming a team, this is also a challenge to coordinate between them and keep them together until they reach the performing stage, and keep them there to be performing all the time. Is there any questions online?
Here. What about when you have multiple generations within the labor force, and you have a team with baby boomers, millennials, centennials? Also, priorities are different. How do you work up to build a positive outcome there?
It's not easy, as you know. Okay. I'm 62 now. Okay, and I work with people from different generations. The way depends on the person's perception of that change and willing to actually work with other people. The mentality of the mentality of the older generation need to change, that I don't know everything. They think always that I know more than the younger person, and that's a challenge that you're gonna face. So as a leader, you're gonna need to kind of facilitate the discussion in there and help them understand that a good idea could come from anywhere and from any level. Okay, I tell people that I work with, I made numerous mistakes that I cannot count, and I'm still making mistakes. Unless I learn from you and you learn from me, every time I go for a training class, I expect to learn from the people that actually I'm talking to them. Okay, so it's a mentality shift more than anything else. I cannot tell people, like as I said, I'm a mainframe developer. I have a lot of mainframe developers who will tell you point blank, Agile is not going to work for me. Okay, because most of mainframe developers is almost at my age. Like you don't find a lot of younger people doing mainframe development. So it's just a mind shift. And sometimes, and I hate to say that, sometimes you can tell them, we choose this bus. Either you find your place on the bus or find another bus. Like you get, like you get to a point sometimes, like I hate to say that, but if there is no other way, we choose this way of working. Either you find your way with us or find another way. Yeah, or, like, you see this place there? that will be your last. That will be your last option, is to show them the door, okay? Because some people are not coachable. You know, like, you do whatever you can, and I can give you examples. I was working in one organization, and a product owner working with a team. He felt that he's a manager of the team. We don't have manager in an agile team, and he kept hindering the team progress. And we kept working with him to the point he was not coachable at that time. And then we spoke to the director. We said, he's hindering the team. You gotta have to do something about it, because he's not listening to us as a coach. I have no authority. You know, like, if I'm coaching a team, I have no authority. My job is advisory. I advise you on the right stuff that you need to do. So the director said, you know, if you don't change, you're going to be out of the project, not out of the company, but out of the project. You know, and then the person changed 100% and start working with a team. So it's going to be a challenge as a leader, how to actually bridge a gap between them.
What I've seen is that Lean starts as a project within a company, as a pilot project, and then goes scaling up until, like, the rest of the company start getting on the board.
Yes.
Sometimes that's the way to sell it internally, you know? It's like, so that's why we're out of the project, but they're still in the company.
Yeah. So the concept of MVP, or the minimum viable product, or the concept of the proof of concept. You take one area and you implement Agile and Lean there, and the success of that area, it actually starts to spread out to the other areas. In the other organization that I'm coaching, a year and a half ago, when I started with this company, we were going to line of business like, oh, you know, like, we're going to help you to implement Agile and Lean. And most of them, they just, like, told us, take a hike. We don't need you. We are fine with what we're doing. Okay. And then we pushed for some training. You know, like, we started training last May, not this year, the previous year. And then we start in-person training in July. And right now, I cannot keep up with the amount of the training that people are asking me to do. You know, not only in one city, in multiple cities, because they see the difference that happen in smaller teams. Now, and I'm not only, you know, like, all my coaches in the organization are busy. We start to hire some consultants to do some of the training too, because we cannot keep up. So as he said, you just start small, and it start kind of like the disease usually spreads, also the good things also spread. Next slide, please. So where to go from there? Okay. All right, we're gonna skip this. We spoke about it. Next slide. Personal growth. So Lean Agile is only affect the organization, but also affect the people themselves. An example I always say, that I started learning about Lean and Agile about like 5-6 years, or a little bit more. First class for Lean that I took, I went home and I told my wife, I want to change the layout of the kitchen. The way we make coffee, I want to change the layout where the stuff is. Maybe, you know, like, you can, you know, like, she wasn't happy at the time, but, you know, because we had the coffee machine in one area, the mugs and cups in one area, the sugar and the grinds in other area, was not creating flow. So personally, I want to create flow so that it affects your personal growth, you know, like, acting. I also, we're going to talk about another framework later on. It's called the Kanban. Okay, the Kanban is like, you know, like, you visualize the work. I have a board in my office at home for the chores to do, doing, and done. So like, it affects your personal growth, you know, because you also learn about new way of doing stuff in your personal life. And also, when you learn about retrospective, you start to do retrospective not only in your team, you do retrospective for yourself too. And you're gonna look at, you know, like, what's next for me. As I said, when I, like, if I'm involved in any interview, I actually don't, you know, like, I don't care much about the knowledge as much I care about the persons themselves. I ask them about, like what you're planning to learn in next year. What you plan, it's not like where do you see yourself in the next 5 years. I want to, know what you're going to learn next year, what you plan for learning in 5 years, okay? Because the person who are always willing to learn is always a better employee from people who just, I've been doing it for 35 years, and this is the way I'm only going to do it. So that involving lean and agile, it's also affect the personal growth for teams. Next slide, please. Now there's other screen. All right, so I'm just gonna. All right, so now we learn about agile and lean, learn about the principles, learn about why they are important, where to go from here if you have not done that. So what we do, okay? I have a company, I have a team, what I do from here. So we're gonna talk about few frameworks that you can just examine later on and see if there's something can work for you. Next slide, please. The first framework is called Scrum, okay? Scrum is a framework that came from the sport of rugby. And rugby probably not very popular here, but it's in Australia and India, where the idea, the whole team hold the ball and everybody pushing the person in order to score. So the idea is like working as a team to get to the finish line together, okay? So the Scrum is a framework, light framework that help the team accomplish the goals. To understand Scrum, it's very easy to understand Scrum. It has roles, has events, and it has artifacts. It has 3 roles: product owner, Scrum master, development team. Events, they have sprint planning, they have daily Scrum, they have sprint review, and sprint retrospective. The artifacts are product backlog, sprint backlog, and increment, which is what we create. Very easy to understand. Very difficult to master. The idea, and the reason why it's difficult to master, because you need to change your mindset, okay? If you don't change your mindset, it's not going to work for your company, because if your company is not going to change their way of working, it's not going to work, okay? Scrum is one of the most used framework from the Agile arena. There is many others, but one of the most common is the Scrum. Next slide, please. The next one is called the Kanban. Okay, Kanban came from the Toyota, basically, which basically visualize the work, limit the work in progress, and improve the flow of work. The idea is to look at your value stream and look at the stages of work, and then create like a ticket that start to moving from one stage to another. Okay. By the way, I teach each course. I teach Scrum in 2 days, and I teach Kanban in 2 days. So like I'm just brushing on them, but so you can know that there is other things that you can use. Kanban, you could use it even at home, as I mentioned, managing your daily chores. As I said, I created one at home. I told the family, anything you want me to do, write and take sticky notes and put it into do. Once I start working on it, I move it, and it's in doing. When I'm done, I just move it to. I'm an old man. I forgot things. If they tell me stuff and it's not written, most probably I'll forget. So I want to make sure that I'm able to. And again, I got to practice what I preach. I tell you guys use Kanban. If I don't use Kanban myself, I'll be hypocrites. But it's actually, forget about that. It's very, very effective tool in managing your work. And of course, could be used in many industries. Regardless of your industry, Kanban will be a really good tool to use. As I said, it came back from Toyota production systems. Next slide, please. So this is what Edgar asked earlier. And I spoke about, scaling, which is taking one team to make it like maybe 10 teams together working on the same product and synchronization between them. And in this framework, I'm certified to certify other people. Okay, like I teach certification classes for this framework. I could certify Scrum Master, Product Owner, and others. Yeah, actually, before coming to Panama, I was in New York teaching 3 days classes for SAFE. And after Panama, I'm going to Pittsburgh. I'm going to be home on Monday. Tuesday, I'm flying to Pittsburgh to do another class. So, but generally, as that's the framework that you want to look at when you have organizational hierarchy and how to take it to actually do the Agile and Lean implemented in your company or your organization. Okay, so the idea is taking the multiple teams and synchronize between them. As you said earlier, like we start with a smaller line of business, implement it, and then we start building on. Next slide, please. We use some Agile metrics because what you cannot measure, you cannot improve. Okay, so those are some of the Agile metrics that we use. We use something called the velocity. We use, cycle time. We use lead time, and the metrics help the productivity, help self-improvement, continuous improvement, and help also the predictability. Regardless what frame you are actually doing, you're gonna always get that question, when are you gonna get it done, right? So you're gonna be predictable. And if you cannot measure it, you cannot improve it, so that we have to have some measurements. Next slide, please. So some of the lean tools, value stream mapping. And value stream mapping, the idea is to look how the value created in your organization, and then you map it in the steps and find who's involved in those steps. And that then looking at each step and how long each step takes, and what is the delay in between, and how you help remove it. And then there is a Kaizen, which is a Japanese word for improvement, which Kaizen is an event you can have for like a week in the company, and certain steps that you take in order to improve that organization. Next slide, please. All right. So looking at you guys as leaders to first decide to change the way of working and empower your people to be able to take this and be great. All right. So this presentation will be available for attendees to take. Okay, you can just create a PDF of it and send it to them. All right, thank you. All right, I usually leave a few minutes at the end for questions and discussions. Sir, you wanna? Here's the microphone.
Thank you for your presentation, sir. I would like to hear from you. What do you think about black belt certification? I mean, I'm a green belt certified engineer, and my mentor of Sunday in India is encouraging me to start the black belt.
Okay.
The green belt certification this year will start again. So I talked to him and I told him that I would like to do it again. He's telling me, no, why? You need to go for the black belt. And I told him that I wanted to refresh my knowledge, the uses of this technique, this methodology. So I was wondering, it is important for me working in the service industry to go through the black belt certification with the cost and time, etc. or it is okay with the green belt certification. With this whole agile methodology, I think it's more, it's become more popular these days for the last 5 years, I think, because it has been absorbed easily from many departments in a company. It is different from black belt, green belt techniques, D9. Nowadays, you hear from human resources department talk about being agile, and in the past it wasn't that way with Lean Six Sigma certification.
Sure.
So, what do you think? In my case, it is important to go for the black belt, or it's okay for me for the green belt certification? And I have another question.
All right. So let's answer first question.
Okay.
Okay. So this question has two parts. Okay. What the importance of certifications in general? Okay. Why I need to be certified? Anyone? Okay. So certification is basically kind of proof that you know the knowledge. Okay. You already have the knowledge. Kind of validate your knowledge by taking an exam, and that exam will say, you passed. So you already validated that you have the knowledge. Certification doesn't mean that you know the stuff well and you can practice it, but at least certification will get you an interview. Like if you are applying for a job or you're applying for a promotion, certification will get you that first step. It's up to you after that to actually be able to prove yourself to be like that you're actually doing for this certifications. I would go for the black belt, and I'm gonna tell you why. For many years, I was practicing stuff, and I didn't care about certifications until I got a mentor who told me most of the fields are certifications. When they see certified person, if like you have two people with certification and one who's not without certification, they are probably going to look at the person with certification first, and then they look at the other ones first. It's a normal progression to move from the green belt to the black belt, where in Lean, and when we teach this in the class, I teach one of the classes in Harrisburg University, people who are green belt are allowed to do certain things when we do in Kaizen, for example. Okay? People with black belt are allowed to do more. So it's good for your career to just go to the next step.
Thank you for your answer. And the other thing is that the other question is, related to your personal life, do you find time or any technique to differentiate between your working life and your family? I give you an example. Some years ago, one of my girlfriends told me that I talked to her like a robot. Maybe I gave her some instructions in some cases. Because I was so obsessed about these techniques, green belt, Lean Six Sigma, that I wanted to apply it in everything. I wanted to do my domestic, my Saturdays, doing some things, personal things. I wanted to have a very scheduled weekends, and I wanted to everybody to learn. My mom, my domestic person that works in my home, but I understand that for some people that is not working. Maybe it's too tough.
Yeah.
Or myself, I need to be more relaxed during weekends and cutting things, business things at the end of the week.
The reason I'm smiling because like I have a lot of examples of my personal life. When I was managing with like because that progression, besides managing that drugstore, I was manager also in IT. Okay, so when I used to go home, a lot of time my wife used to tell me, "Stop managing me." All right. So, and now because I learned a different way of working and a different way of talking to people and different, way, the way of leadership and stuff like that. She knows me very well. We've been married for almost 30 years now, okay? So sometimes I'll say something and she's like, yeah, those are stuff that you're gonna do. This stuff, keep this stuff to tell other people, not to me. So you're gonna have to be careful. Sometimes you have to step back, like I told people, like I was invited by the Harrisburg University to do the class here. And that's part of it, this event. I wanted to make it a vacation, so I extended 5 days before the event. All what we did, we just stayed by the beach. That's what you want, okay? And that's what, like you have to be careful with. You need to make some separation. It's gonna affect your life, but you have to make separation between your family life and personal life. Otherwise, like if the other people in your family not gonna take it very well, it might affect your family life. It's gonna affect your family life regardless, but you gotta be careful how this is gonna happen, I have in two extremes also. My daughter is picking up everything I do, and she's doing the same thing, and she's a high stress person, and my son doesn't like it, so he's a very relaxed person. He doesn't do the same, so like you can see that. It's gonna affect our personal life regardless. Any other questions? We close, I'm very big proponent of starting on time and closing on time. I want to thank you all. Thank you for inviting me being here. I hope you guys enjoy a little bit of the presentation. My information is in the presentation. Reach out if you have any questions. If I know the answer, I'll tell you the answer. If I don't know the answer, I'm just going to make up one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Philip. Very, very interesting presentation. Really, I think that was a lot of information to digest, actually. And I have to admit that when we were deciding about the topic, about the Lean Agile methodology and everything, it sounds easy, in simple terms. But really, there's a lot to learn and a lot to apply to our lives and to our work environment. So my takeaway is first step, mindset. Mindset is the first step. And so it was very, very good. Thank you so much for your presentation. Bueno, I'm going to switch back to Spanish. Y gracias a la audiencia por sus aportes, por sus presentaciones, sus preguntas. Yo creo que, cubrimos la mayoría de los temas que queríamos cubrir hoy. Para cerrar, respetando los tiempos, pues solamente queremos cerrar con una iniciativa que estamos lanzando. Ya la mayoría de ustedes la conocen. Es una iniciativa de innovación abierta que estamos lanzando el próximo mes, en agosto. Y lo que tratamos de hacer, o lo que vamos a hacer realmente, es identificar necesidades de industria. Philip y Michael nos dijeron al inicio de la presentación que precisamente todo lo que nosotros estamos, o todo lo más importante que debemos centrarnos, está basado en las necesidades de nuestros clientes, en necesidades de industrias, necesidades reales. Por ende, eso es lo que vamos a hacer. Vamos a identificar necesidades en Panamá y en toda nuestra región para entonces encontrar soluciones innovadoras para poder satisfacer esas necesidades, encontrarles soluciones. Así que aquí es donde entran a colación nuestras startups, en nuestros programas y todo el público realmente a nivel regional, los corporativos, para poder aportar retos de innovación. Y va a ser la escalatón que vamos a estar lanzando el próximo mes. Así que los voy a dejar con un video para cerrar y para que vean un poquito de qué se trata, los que no la han visto. Y estamos abiertos entonces después para preguntas. Muchas gracias. Adelante, si me ponen el video por acá.
En tiempos en los que decir tenemos que colaborar, preferimos decir colaboramos. En tiempos en los que decir tenemos que actuar, preferimos decir actuamos. En tiempos en los que quedarse quietos y mirar las cosas pasar, preferimos acciones concretas. En tiempos en los que todos debemos unirnos para hacer frente a los desafíos que enfrenta nuestro planeta, nosotros nos hemos unido. Hoy, con gran honor, les presentamos Escala. Escalatón 2023, una iniciativa de innovación sostenible abierta que busca unir a todos los actores del ecosistema para colaborar y encontrar soluciones de impacto que aborden los desafíos más grandes de nuestros tiempos. Porque sabemos que la sostenibilidad no es solo una palabra, es una acción y una responsabilidad que debemos asumir juntos, ser protagonistas y hacer que las cosas sucedan. Las estadísticas de nuestro planeta al 2050 son aterradoras. Las grandes empresas deben darle prioridad a los cambios que permitan contribuir al desarrollo sostenible de la sociedad. Estamos buscando soluciones innovadoras para tener un mundo más inteligente y sostenible. Esta es una oportunidad de colaborar para hacer un mundo mejor y de construir una Latinoamérica sostenible y escalable. Esta iniciativa es de Panamá para la región, con el objetivo de promover la equidad y oportunidad para todos. Escalemos la innovación sostenible para una mejor región y para lograrlo necesitamos de ti. Únete a Escalatón 2023 y sé parte del cambio. Juntos podemos hacer una diferencia real.
Bueno, eso es Escalatón, un pequeño preview de lo que vamos a tener el próximo mes. Así que todas las startups que nos escuchan, acá también tenemos presentes para que se unan y puedan participar. Excelente iniciativa que estamos lanzando desde Panamá para la región. Así que todos estarán invitados. Y bueno, así cerramos. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos a todos, a la audiencia virtual también. Tenemos algunas personas, de hecho, conectadas desde Italia, Brasil, desde Herrera. Así que bueno, muy contentos por el alcance. Así que, y bueno, muchas gracias a Philip y a Michael por sus presentaciones de hoy y a ustedes también por acompañarnos. Gracias.